Hello and welcome to the Bougie in a Backpack podcast. I'm Mackenzie from Travel Mackenzie, and I'm here today with Deanna. She is a returning guest on the podcast. She's a full-time lawyer, part-time creator aiming to help people maximize earning and redeeming credit card points for bucket list-worthy vacations. And she's a returning speaker at our October summit where she spoke about the basics of booking, how to actually use your points. And she was also a guest on our episode 75. So if you haven't heard that episode yet, you can go check out, listen to all about her booking a trip to Oktoberfest and some of the benefits of using business credit cards. But yes, welcome back to the podcast today, Deanna.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today. So just happy to share anything that I can to help people out.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about walking through the basics of booking. So this will be a really good episode to listen to if you are new to Points and Miles. Maybe you found our podcast and don't really know where to get started because sometimes these topics just get breezed over. So we're going to be talking about that, but also sometimes there's some of the basics of booking that maybe you've been doing it for a while, but you don't think about. So I think it'll be overall helpful for people, no matter what stage of the Points and Miles process you are. But Deanna, for those who haven't met you before, can you give a little intro about who you are and how you got into Points and Miles?
Yeah, so my name is Deanna. I think you did most of the intro, so I can be found at the Points Fly Girl. I am mostly on Instagram. I'm hoping to get my YouTube up and going whenever I find the time and do more long form, introduction, because I do think a part of my goal was to help people really understand what was going on. I feel like there's a lot of stuff out there that is just overly simplistic, making incredibly complicated things and putting them into 20 seconds that they're missing a lot of the basics and maybe confuses a lot of people, or they're so advanced that people just feel like, okay, I can't get into this. So I just want people to know, especially those that are just starting out, that there's easy ways to do this, but it does take some time to learn. And I want to help people, start at the basics, learn a little bit more, and try to be as informational as I can in my content. So that's kind of why I started, because I got into points during COVID. I actually had a friend who worked with a service. There's a service out here in Las Vegas that has a personal service. You pay him. He does everything. So they have no idea what's going on in the Points and Miles world. He does. And he just tells them, this is the credit card you get and you fly. And they're flying business class. And I was like, wait, how do I do this? This is actually for real happening. So I did a deep dive and then here I am. So, and I loved it so much. I just talk about it all the time, as I'm sure I think most of us do. We're like, this is so cool. Everybody needs to get in on this. That I thought maybe trying content would be interesting. So I started just in January posting on Instagram, and I'm just super excited to just keep on teaching people. It's been a lot of work, but I feel like it's so much fun, and you get to meet other people and help other people. It's so exciting when people are telling me, oh my God, your video helped me with this, or your guide helped me with that. I did actually get to meet somebody that did the Bougie in a Backpack. She did I do free credit card consultations. So she actually took me up on it. And it was so nice to talk to her and, talk about her goals and what she's learning and, help her kind of just advance just a little bit more, so that's me basically.
Yeah. I think you bring up a lot of good points about things that, and I'm guilty of it too with my reels because they're so short, they have to be, but sometimes there's just some nuance that isn't covered, or, people are looking for more advanced topics, but they don't realize that there's some beginner stuff that you need to know before, just the basics, things that you need to have set in place before you really do this. And I noticed a lot of people were commenting on your presentation, wow, I didn't realize, I never thought that I had to do this. And there was definitely a lot of good feedback for that. So if you guys, this was for the October summit, which is past, but you can still check it out. We have the VIP goodie bag in the show notes if you want to check out Deanna's presentation there. But let's talk about how do we even get started? What is the most basic thing you need to start before you can book an award flight?
Oh, I think one thing that half the people have seen a million reels on it, and half people it's the first time they hear about it, right? Is transferring your points. And I think that that's where a lot of people's minds get blown, because everybody's using the travel portal when they get their credit card, right? You get your credit card and it tells you you can use it to fly. Well, how can I use it to fly? And it's like travel portal. So I go in and I use my points and, I feel like I'm killing the game because I just got a flight for the points on things I was going to spend money on anyway. But as most of us in this travel world, right, have found out that there is actually a better way by transferring your points out to partners. And I know some people are like, well, why does that even matter? Right. And a lot of that is because with the loyalty programs, you can find all of these great deals with them, especially by looking different dates, being flexible. And that's, kind of what I go into in my talk. Because if you just go to the portal, right, you search, I want to go to the Christmas market. So December 15th, I look for a flight. I'm based in Las Vegas, right? Want to go Las Vegas to Germany. And it's going to tell me, it's going to cost however many thousand points, right? One way, maybe like 13,000 points. And if I'm like, oh, maybe I want to splurge on business class, then it's going to cost me. I looked at them before I learned everything. It was like 200,000 points or something like that. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I don't even have that many points. So that's not going to work. Okay, let me just book my flight through the portal. But if you go to the actual loyalty program, so hotels and airlines, then oftentimes you can find really good deals. And especially with the airlines, they have these specials and really good deals. And it's perfectly timed that we're doing this right now because I feel like Virgin Atlantic is a really good example right now. I just posted a video today to show people, right? And I'm looking at one of the business class flights when I was looking up videos for my examples. And if I would have looked at one particular day to fly that day, it was to fly in business class, it was like 380,000 points versus I used the calendar view to see like the day before, I want to say was maybe around like 60,000 points, right? And then the transfer bonuses, right? When you transfer out to programs, sometimes there are transfer bonuses and it depends on the month or whatever they're throwing out there. And right now, Virgin Atlantic with Chase, it's 40% transfer bonus, right? So on top of that, Chase is giving you an additional 40% of your points that you transfer over for free just for transferring them. And that was one of the things that really blew my mind when I learned about that is transfer bonuses. And it's just like so crazy because most months there's a transfer bonus from one credit card to somewhere, right? Sometimes it's dry, but most of the time there's one out there. So that's another thing I want to warn people. Don't just transfer your points because you see a high number and you're like, woo, let me transfer all my points and figure it out later. You want to find something first because you don't want, because, right, you're taking transferable points, something that will transfer to a ton of different airlines and hotels, and you're moving them to one program and it can't go back. So if you don't find something, you don't have something in mind and you're like, oh, I'll find something later. You just never know, right? Overnight, these programs change. And so I don't want to overwhelm people, but
Yeah.
let's start with that, right? Transferring points is the biggest thing. And then just learning how to search with those transfer partners. And a lot of us do have guides. I'm sure you guys have something, I have my transfer guide that shows people which programs or which credit card points transfer over to which programs to kind of help make it simple, right? Like I always tell everybody that's my Bible. That's where I start, right? Look there, look and see what's going there, right? I'll usually, if I'm looking for a flight, I'll usually start with like Google Flights just to see who flies there, right? Like my husband, his family is, and he's from Ireland. So, flying into Ireland is a great repositioning spot for us. We're going to Europe or just to go see family. So say I want to fly to Dublin, I'll go and just search. And even if you already know what airlines fly there, right? Because they like, oh, last year I did this. I know what airlines fly. Always search again because you never know. Like, for example, Las Vegas to Dublin, they just started, I think it was October, a nonstop from Vegas to Dublin. So that's so great because that's a new option. And if I wasn't following that, I wouldn't know. You want to start with, what programs fly there, what hotels are there, and then that's when you start your search after that. But I do kind of want to say, I guess, like the basics to make it really easy. There are some easy ones out there. So, for example, Hyatt is a really good transfer partner with Chase. And I'm sure anybody listening to this, if they've listened to any of us, right, we talk about Chase all the time, transfer to Hyatt. And you can go to Hyatt and you can just see like how good of a value you can get. And that's a pretty simple first step. Like I met someone who was overwhelmed and confused by all the transfer partners, everything. And he just learned, you know what? Chase transfers to Hyatt, and I'm just going to use my points for my hotels. And I think that's a great starting point, or even, all the way point. If you don't want to get into the whole like spending hours searching, all of that, that is something so simple that you can do to make your points go so far, right? You can stay in these beautiful hotels. We just stayed in New York at the Park Hyatt. And I think it
Mm.
goes for like $1,400 a night, the room
Yeah,
that
that
we
sounds
got
about right.
upgraded to, right? And we would pay 45,000 points, which is a bit high on the points. And I get a lot of people don't want to spend that, but it was so great, right? Like I got to spend my birthday in New York at a beautiful hotel right next to Central Park. And it was just so awesome that like things like this are only made possible by points. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're like, I just can't do this, check out Hyatt. You guys are going to find such good deals. Even I have another friend who she has kids and she doesn't want to travel fancy or anything like that. And she, same thing, doesn't use it on flights. And I introduced her to points. And she's so excited because she's like, dude, I'm staying in hotels for 3,500 points a night. This is so crazy. I love it. They're able to go see family. They stayed in a hotel before their cruise that they already had booked. And, she's just loving using her points as much as possible for, just a whatever hotel. She doesn't care. She just wants a bed to sleep in. And if that's you, holy crap, you will be shocked by the good deals that you can get out of Hyatt, right?
Yeah,
So
I think there's plenty of people who only do that, and they're still getting so much value. All they're doing is transferring Chase points to Hyatt, and that's like
sure.
you could. And there's a lot of people also who just they'll do like Hyatt and like Southwest. Like they'll be like, okay, I'm gonna like it's good for Hawaii or like Mexico. Like there's a lot of flights that you can take, and you do Southwest Companion Pass and transfer Chase points to like you could do if you want to keep it simple. You could just only do that. But I do want to go back to your point about the portal because it's interesting. Some people, even when you tell them, like, yeah, transfer your points to Hyatt, they'll go to the portal and search for Hyatt Hotel in the portal. Cause, like, it's just like it's not very intuitive the way. And I don't know if this is on purpose. I'm going to say, I feel like they're trying, like, I feel like the credit card companies sometimes just like don't want you to transfer your points. Like, I don't know, because it's
Yeah,
so
I think that they seem to make it a little bit hard, right?
yeah, because it's like you're like, oh, there's an airplane. That's probably means like I'm gonna transfer it to airlines, like right? And you click it, and that's the portal. And when you search it, it shows it's like, oh, it's this many points, and people are thinking, oh, that must be. And like let's say they're like, oh, it's a United flight showing up. United's a partner. Like that must be how you transfer your points. It's like no, like you need to go where it says transfer it out, and then you have to have a United account already. And then it's like
Mhm.
you go into United and you search it in United, and then it's just like that little step that I feel like that took me
Yeah.
forever to figure out. Like I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
doing it. I'm doing the whole thing. Like, but it's just
Yeah, I
not.
got a flight. I got my flight. What's the problem? Right?
Yeah. So
And
I guess like I would ask like, how would you start off with that? Like, how do you searching through the accounts and like, how do you organize your accounts? Do you make a bunch of accounts? You make accounts as you need them? Like, how does that all work as a beginner?
yeah, so yeah, this is a really good point, right? Your loyalty accounts, I would say, like, set those up as soon as possible. And I know it's a little annoying, right? You go in, you got to fill in your name and address for every single one, verify your email, even sometimes, and sometimes the verify email doesn't come through, whatever. And it is really annoying. And even if you have to space it out, just right now, like, go to your favorite transfer chart, right? If you want mine, send me a DM. Go down the list of every single credit card points that you have and set up those loyalty accounts. And the reason I say this is because you want them there and done for number one, when you find a good deal, you're going to want to be able to jump on that immediately, right? By the time you find the time to set up your account, do everything, not only, it's possible those seats could be gone and maybe they're not. A lot of them do stick around a while. But the biggest thing is that every once in a while, when you have a new account, your points could be held when you're transferring. And I told this story, I think, in my talk is that
Mhm.
when my husband, we found a great deal on Air Canada. It was the first time we were flying business class. So I didn't really know a whole lot, but I found this weird thing where you could find it on one seat, but not on two. And we found a really good deal. And I took way too big of a risk, but it worked out where I just transferred my points over, booked that one flight, and then it was still there. It was on some kind of special, but only when you searched one. So I'm like, great. Told my husband, transfer your points over, super easy. This is how you do it. But he had to set up his Air Canada account. And because it was brand new, and then he went into the transfer, it got held for 3 days. And we were so lucky that that flight is
Oh,
still there, because a lot of times it won't be. So that's the story I
mhm.
tell people, like, make sure you have your loyalty account, because that's why it got held up, was just because it was new. That's the only reason. So if I had followed my advice, had heard somebody say this before, we wouldn't have been in that situation. And, 3 days is a long time for a business class flight on a good deal to still be there. I'm sure right? Like,
Oh
that
yeah.
that could easily have been gone. So I don't want that to be you guys. So, and with something so simple, just to have already had a loyalty account. So you want to make sure it's there. Everything's all set up for when you do want to transfer. There's some crazy good transfer bonus. You just never know, right? Like, Built has their transfer bonuses. They're huge ones for one day. So you've got one day to, like, figure it out and get everything there or whatever. You just want to make sure everything's done and there. So, but also I know that transferring can be a bit confusing, or, they don't know, like, where to find and stuff. So I did do a transfer guide. That was one thing, that the freebie I
Mhm.
had given out with everything. So if anybody listening to this, like, wants my transfer guide, just send me a DM.
Yeah, we can
And
put
I
it in
can
the
show
show
you
notes
guys.
as well too.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So, because I
we have
know
our
everybody's like,
blueprint
how do I do
we have
it?
our blueprint that goes over some of it too, but it's like probably there's like different like you want all the resources you can get on it. So,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but you know what? And then this is reminding me of something else, because we're talking about booking in the portal versus direct with the airline, because sometimes it's not that big of a difference, right? Sometimes it's the same if you're
mhm.
looking at economy flights, especially. But just remember, when you're booking with the airline, you're booking with the airline, right? You're booking
Mhm.
directly with the airline, and they're going to have, if the flight gets canceled, the flights gets changed, everything's going to be a whole lot easier to deal with. But also, a lot of them, and maybe even all of them, there might be a few, I don't know, I need to go through them. But if you cancel, you can get your points back fairly easily, right? Like, Southwest is famous for this, right? You just cancel, you get all your points back, you get your money back 10 minutes before the flight, I think. And then, like, KLM, for example, you can cancel for a fee. So if something happens, right, especially when we're booking far out, you can cancel and get that back. Whereas when you book through the portal, oftentimes it's not refundable. Like, people have booked flights, and then if they have to cancel because of a family emergency, sometimes that's it. You lose your points, you lose whatever else that you paid, and that's just the downside of booking through a third party. Like, it's your portal, and I know it feels like, they're working directly with these airlines, but they're not. They're just like Expedia or anyone else, right? They're a third party.
Yeah. I think
And
it's literally Expedia. Like they're powered
yeah,
by
I think it is.
Expedia.
Yeah.
Well, with Chase at least. I think
Yeah.
every credit card has a different
Yeah.
uh third party that they use. Some of them use the same, but yeah, it is
Yeah.
like booking through Expedia. And not only if you have to cancel, but if like they change your flight and then it doesn't work for you, like usually if they did it on your airline, you can just go to the airline directly and complain. But they're whenever you're booking anything through a third party, they're gonna play like the finger pointing game where they're like, no, you have to ask them, no, you have to ask them, and
Mhm.
they'll never, or if you have to change your seat, or
Yeah.
you like won't be able to upgrade. So there's just a lot of reasons why I'd avoid the portal. But like, yeah, like sometimes
Yeah.
you can get a good deal if it's like a sure thing.
Yeah. I have, you're right.
Hmm.
I'm not one of those people that's completely anti and never booking the portal, because I know some people are, because if I find a crazy good deal, I'm gonna book it.
Yeah.
So, and then take my chances, right? But it's something you have to be aware of, right? You need to just be aware that the terms are not as friendly, and especially if you end up having to cancel for whatever reason.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about booking. When you book through one airline, you transfer your points to that airline, but you're flying on another airline.
Yeah, yeah, the partners, right? That's
Yeah.
I feel like that's almost getting a bit, more advanced as you learn, right? But I mean, yeah, it's great, and that's a great way to find good deals too, right? Is by searching on partner airlines. So that's another thing when you're looking to fly somewhere, you look on Google Flights and you find, Turkish Airlines, for example, flies, from Denver to Istanbul, then you don't have to just search Turkish Airlines, because they do have partnerships. And it's even easier if you search on United, for example, right? Or Delta uses a ton of points. I think that that's a really good example. Sometimes you search Delta, they've got this airline, but they also partner with KLM. So if I book it through KLM, sometimes you'll be booking through but then when you get there, you're flying on an airplane that's with someone else. So it's a weird thing, and then you kind of like have to learn it. But I think if you're searching all of the airlines, then you'll kind of learn. You'll see. And that's one of the things that I think I talked a lot about in my talk, is that there's no like magic to all of this. And I think that's what I thought, right? Like, I'm gonna find somebody's gonna tell me that there's this magic that you can just like how to find these flights. But a lot of it is just learning and searching the flights on your own, and then starting to learn which ones partner with who. And the more you're searching, the more you're looking at it, the more you are learning. And it does start off, I'll be honest, it starts off very frustrating. When I first started, I'm like, this takes so much time. This is so annoying. I don't think I'm going to do this. But the more you learn, it kind of gets fun. I tell a lot of people, to me, it's a big strategy game with real life prizes, right? Once you learn how to play the game, it can get really exciting. You learn, you have to, you learn the alliances, you learn where you can play on who, you learn about these like weird little secret alliances that kind of are but aren't.
Yeah.
And I wish I could remember her name. There was somebody who did that actually at the talk that I watched, and it was so good. I want to look it up because I would love to give her a shout out. She was so
Yeah,
good, but then she talked about like these like little secret alliances and stuff that I didn't even know about. It was so good. It was like it was something like
I think
hacking
Stephanie Be Free to Wander. It's
yeah,
like
I
she
think
was talking
that's it.
about
Yeah.
like Aer Lingus and United,
Yes,
like
yes,
weird
yes. It
partners
was
like
so
that.
good. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was so good. And I was like, oh my God, I wish I would have watched this when I was doing my talk, so I could tell people, okay, after you watch me, go and watch her, because she's like the level up from me for this. It was
Yeah.
so good because there was a couple things that I definitely learned in her talk, like avios, however you say it, right, is a really good example of this too, right? Because you can share between avios partners, right? And I had found a flight that I was even eyeing for when I want to go to Paris next year, and it was booking on Iberia but flying British. And then Stephanie was the one who was like, I wouldn't do that because they have different policies.
Yeah.
Iberia has bad policies when it's on a different metal. So there are like little weird things to learn and stuff. And sometimes you just learn by being the one that's stuck, which kind of sucks. But, fortunately for us, she learned that and can pass along that information. So anyway, Bougie and
Yeah.
Backpack is definitely a wealth of information that even, those of us who are a bit more advanced can still watch some of these that have so much information. And I loved it. It was great.
Yeah. And I think part of that too is she searches for flights for people. Like she does that. And I think it's just the repetition of seeing once you get familiar with these programs. And that's why I would encourage people to just like, it's not, you don't have to be searching for actual flights you're going to book. You could just mess around, and then you probably end up booking some stuff because you'll find some stuff that you didn't expect. But
Yeah.
like just going through the motions of, making sure you have those accounts in place, running searches and just getting comfortable, because that's another thing I think people that holds people up is like they feel so uncomfortable. And I was like this too. I sometimes am like this when I'm transferring a lot of points, transferring the points and then being not sure how long it's going to take for it to hit. And then, they're gone, like you can't send them back. And then, but not being sure, not being comfortable with when you found a deal, like, is this a deal that I'm going to find a lot, or is it like a unicorn? Like, what is it? And just running searches a lot will help get you comfortable with that.
Exactly. Because we're running a search for the first time and you find a flight and you're like, it's, oh, this is 80,000 points. Is that a good deal? I don't know. Right. Best you can do is just find a Facebook group or Reddit or something and post it on there and see what people have to say. But a lot of them probably haven't searched that route, so they may not be giving you correct information either. So, there's a few different methods I think you can use, right? I've talked before about calculating cents per point. That's one way. But one way is to just look, and I think that's the best way, right? It's like when you go shopping, right? You know that this sweater made out of this great material, you can find it at other stores for this much. But if you're shopping at that store all the time and know that it's usually $80, and then when you see it one day for 30, then you know that that's a deal. And nobody else would know that because you go to that store every day, right? And that's what it is. If you're searching and you can find it, right? Like me flying from Vegas, there's certain routes that I know and I know how low that they can get. So, but then that almost makes it a little bit harder, because then when there's a good deal, but it's not the best, you're wondering if you should jump.
Yeah.
But then you're taking a risk, right? So That's another thing, right? You have to decide what risk level you're comfortable with. And I'd say if it's a good deal, just go ahead and book it. Don't also always chase like the best deal, right? Because I
Hmm.
know for I've seen from here to Europe for 50,000 points constantly on KLM. But you're not always going to find that 50,000 point deal. So when I find it for 70, I'm still going to jump on it. Because I'm not going to sit around and wait for the 50. And then if it doesn't come, then I'm either flying coach or paying 200,000 points. You just don't know.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but practice makes perfect, and it helps you learn. Then you know your knowledge and also how much you're willing to reposition, right? Because some places you can find okay deals out of, but if you're willing to fly an hour, 2 hours, you can find some great deals, right? Certain locations, if I fly out of LAX, I'm going to get way better deals than if I fly out of Vegas. And that's going to cost me a lot less points. And for me, that's worth it.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about some of the mistakes that people might make early on. What are some mistakes you would say to avoid when you're, besides, I guess, only using the portal?
Yeah, let me think. I think some of the mistakes would just be not knowing the value of your points, right?
Hmm.
And thinking, right? I've seen people, they just, they really wanted to book a flight and they search one day and then they book it, which that's, what they do. And even when they're transferring, right? Sometimes they'll look from another airline and they're like, okay, I wanted to fly on December 3rd and I looked it up and it's 200,000 points and I've got a lot of points. So why not? I'm going to use it. But if you know the value of your points, then can you fly out a day earlier? Can you fly out a day later that maybe it's cheaper, right? Can you fly out the next month even or a month before? So I think not enough people evaluate how flexible they actually can be, thinking, oh, well, I'm not flexible. I need to be in this location on this date. Well, yeah, but you can still be flexible. Maybe if you need to be in Paris on December 1st, maybe it's more flexible than only flying out the day before. Can you fly out 3 days before? Can you fly out a week before to London? Save yourself half the points and then, catch the train over to Paris. And I think that's what a lot of people, when I talk to them, the whole repositioning, they hear it sometimes and they don't really think about it. There's repositioning on both ends.
Hmm.
It's not just where you're flying from, it's where you're flying to as well, especially in Europe where you can catch a train or a cheap flight and put in another city, right? It can actually be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
Um, and I think just really knowing the value and really evaluating your flexibility, because I think a lot more people are more flexible than they think.
Hmm. Yeah, I think just opening your mind a little bit. I call those unpositioning. Like instead of positioning flights, like unpositioning, like when you're coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's a lot. I mean, it's almost like creating more work for yourself, right? Because then now I'm
Now you
searching
have more
flights to
options.
5 different cities or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
also, I always think whenever I'm going somewhere, I think, well, where else do I want to see, right?
Hmm.
So,
It's an
if
opportunity.
yeah, exactly. Like my husband and I love Chicago. So when I was searching for my flight to Norway, and KLM had a bonus last year. I was looking for flights. I couldn't find exactly what I wanted out of Vegas. It was a bit high. And I found a killer deal out of Chicago. Boom, there we are, weekend in Chicago before we go to Norway, right? And it was fun. It was good. So, but other locations as well. I think a lot of people forget that. Some people they want to go, I really want to go to Rome or I really want to go to Paris. And you can definitely find good deals to those places, but sometimes you can find even better deals to other locations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Just being a little bit more flexible gives you a lot more options and just having that experience and like practicing searching, you can you'll have in your mind more ideas about different ways you can go about solving the problem that is getting from point A to point B the way that
Yeah.
you with your points that you have.
Yeah, but also don't hoard them, right?
Yeah.
It's a fine line to walk because I know a lot of people, it's like, oh, well, I want to use them for the best value, but now for 3 years, I've been paying for all my flights and not using my points. So,
Mhm.
I mean, also use them, right? But just use them on what's good for you. Don't spend too much time evaluating, like, is this the best? Just don't use them on Amazon purchases and you're fine. That's
Yeah.
probably the only thing I'd say because
Yeah.
they're like you get more points just straight up cashing them out. So But and if you know the value of your points, you know why I say that, right? So once you learn the value of your points and what they can actually do and what they can actually mean for you and your family to be able to travel, then I think you start to have a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So your topic at the Bougie and Backpack Virtual Travel Summit in October was about the basics of booking, how to actually use your points, like we talked about today. But if you could give us a little bit of a sneak peek about what you went through on in the presentation, and what people who watch your presentation, if they decide to get the VIP goodie bag, which is available in the show notes, if they decide to get that, what they will take away from your presentation.
So I think a lot of what I do is I just show people exactly what I say, right? How to actually use your points, because they're sitting there and people are telling you you're not using them right. But I show you easy ways, and I give the easiest examples, which I love KLM. And I think a lot of points people do is just rated, I think, by points.me as the best program. And that's because they have, this little almost hidden calendar feature. So I show people how to go through how to use the calendar feature, flexibility that we talked about a bit earlier, to get some really crazy good deals, because I've been getting really crazy good deals with them and using my points with them, transferring over my points. But that's, I walk through it. I talk and show people like how you can be transferring your points over, and actually go through an example of how you can find really good deals on your foot.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deanna, for joining us today. If we want to find you on the internet, if we have any questions, where can we find you?
You can find me. Instagram is my main focus right now. So at the Points Fly Girl, you can follow me up. You can DM me if you have any questions. I always love talking points and miles, so don't feel weird about DMing me. And like I said before, I do free credit card strategy sessions. If anybody just wants to set up a video meeting, we kind of go over everything and what your needs are, what's best for you, and what's a good next move. So, and I love those. I love meeting people and chatting with them about what their goals are, and just I love the whole strategy of it,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for listening today. And if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Let us know if you learned something new, or if you have any questions. We do have the Bougie in a Backpack virtual mailbag where you can put your questions in there and let us know any topics you like to hear about, or what topics you like. And don't forget, we also do have the VIP goodie bag available in the show notes if you want to catch Deanna and all the other, there's about 30 speakers that we had at the October Summit talking about a lot of topics. Some were points and miles, but we also had different destinations, different tips on traveling, making travel possible for different situations. So definitely check that out, and we will see you next time.